Hey everybody on YouTube, this is the Student Witch, and first of all I have to apologize ahead of time in case I get emotional in this video. I have my tissues on hand for any waterworks. It's just an emotional day because here it comes. Tomorrow I go back to Massachusetts, which means I'll be 1,000 miles away from my husband. This will be our second year apart, our second academic year apart. He is finishing up his PhD down here in Georgia. So I've been able to spend the whole summer with him here. And now I'm about to start my second year in my PhD program up in Massachusetts. And I've just been, cleaning and packing my suitcase and trying to accept reality and try to look at the bright side. This time last year, we were just a few months into our marriage, and I moved up by myself to Massachusetts, and I lived out of a crappy hotel for a week because I couldn't move into my apartment yet. And the semester was starting, and I was super nervous and scared, and he was super nervous and scared, and it was rough. At least this time, I have my own apartment waiting for me when I get back up there. I know the university, I know the people, I know the department, I know how the system works, I have a plan, I'm much more confident. And so I've been reflecting on a lot of this today, and I know I've been promising to make some book review videos, but I can't get my mind to focus on it right now. Not a book review. But I wanted to share some realizations I've made this past year that I've been thinking about, especially today, because my flight leaves tomorrow at like 10 in the morning out of Atlanta. And this realization is, why did I turn to witchcraft in the first place? So, and the answer to that is an idea or a concept called radical self-love. And to explain what that concept means, I have a great quote by Audre Lorde. She is an amazing African-American writer. She's just brilliant. So her quote is, "I have come to believe that caring for myself is not self-indulgent. Caring for myself is an act of survival." And this idea of radical self-love is, even when the world seems to be beating you down, even when the media tells you that you're too fat or ugly, or that you need to cover your face with makeup. Keeping in mind, wearing makeup is totally a choice, and I respect that. But the pressure to pressure someone to wear makeup because you tell them that they're not perfect enough, that's wrong. When the world's beating you down, telling you you're not good enough for whatever reason, when the stress of life is just too much because the expectations to be productive are not realistic, or if you're, especially for a woman in academia is very much still a man's world, unfortunately. Even if you're in the more like hippie side of academia, like the humanities, it's very much a man's world, and you will encounter lots of sexism. And if you're a woman of color, and if you're queer in some way, you're going to encounter homophobia and racism too. That's just the reality of it. And another thing you're going to encounter if you come from a lower socioeconomic status, you're going to encounter classism, and that's what I mainly had to deal with last year. So this radical self-love is in the face of all of that. When the world is beating you down, when life is beating you down, when the expectations are too high or too unrealistic, when, if you, in my case, when you're a woman in academia and you come from a working class and you find yourself at this very powerful, very, very powerful academic institution that you never thought in a million years you can make it into, and you're surrounded by all these people who are more privileged than you, all these people who have prejudices and they don't even realize it. And another thing for a woman in academia, if you want to have a family, you know, my husband and I are thinking of having kids within the next 2 or 3 years, and I've heard horror stories of other professors or people in academia telling women that having a family is irresponsible because it distracts them from their work. Like, facing all of this, taking care of yourself, like putting the books down and going to bed at a decent hour and saying, fuck it, I can't do everything, I'm not Superwoman. Taking a bath with some bath salts and lighting some candles, or doing a ritual. Even just walking around your apartment and burning incense, which is what I was doing a lot of last year. Taking those moments for myself allowed me to survive that first year of living 1,000 miles away from my husband. And 1,000 miles away from my family, because I'm up in Massachusetts, but my parents are in Kentucky. My sister is in New Orleans. My closest friends are in Kentucky and Tennessee and Georgia. My husband's in Georgia. You know, taking those moments to just like shut life down and push it outside for a second and just focus on yourself, that is radical self-love. That is that self-care that Audre Lorde was talking about in that quote that I read. And ultimately, witchcraft allowed me to do that. Because like I was saying, since I'm the first generation in my family to get a college education, and then I got a master's, and now I'm at a PhD program at a very powerful, prestigious university, an Ivy League. I'm at an Ivy League, I'm just going to say it. So I feel like I exist in two different worlds. There's the part of me that's from Kentucky, from that working class background. You know, my grandfather was from Appalachia. He had a 4th grade level of education. You know, I'm not even sure what his reading level was. And he had brothers and sisters die of preventable diseases because they lived like hours away from the closest hospital. And he was one of 14 children born on a piece of shit farm on a mountain. You know, and my mom's family is from upstate New York. You know, she was also born into a really rough situation. There was all sorts of abuse on both sides of my family. So coming from that background, and then all of a sudden finding myself at this very powerful Ivy League institution, and not feeling like I fit in anywhere, because I don't fit in Kentucky anymore. I don't fit in that kind of working class setting or culture or whatever you want to call it. But I also don't fit in this privileged world either, and there's very few people who understand the problems I'm going through because, you know, since my husband and I live apart, we have to pay 2 rents. And he's trying to live on a grad student budget, and I'm trying to live on a grad student budget. So there's constant money problems. Constant money problems. We never seem to be able to make ends meet. So how do you explain that to someone who comes from a background in which their parents can pay their rent for them? Or, you know, they spend their summers in France or shit like that. Like, I don't know what that reality is like. And they don't know what my reality is like. And there's very few people in Massachusetts that I can talk to about it. Like, actually, there's one other person that I know of. So, I found myself 1 year ago, when I was moving in, trying to keep my shit together, my first semester by myself up there. I found myself in a very desperate situation. And for some reason, it felt instinctual. I just started diving into my grandfather's Appalachian family history and culture. I mean, I have a record player in my apartment up in Massachusetts that I'll show you guys once I'm up there and once I clean everything. So I have a bunch of bluegrass records, like Flats and Scruggs and, you know, all these great bluegrass performances and records. And I would just listen to those constantly. It was like the mountains, you know, or my family history was just calling to me. And that's how I started learning about Appalachian witchery and the granny women, the midwives who knew about the herbs and knew about the home remedies and knew how to make their own medicine and knew how to bring life into the world. And they also took care of cleaning the bodies and preparing them for burial. And like, they also knew how to, you know, protect you from the jealousy of your neighbors and all this sorts of magic. And all of a sudden I started discovering magic and how I understand magic as a paradigm, as a worldview. And it's an alternative for me that I can go to, that I can use to understand my world, that isn't dogmatic, that isn't monotheistic, that isn't absolutist, like the scientific paradigm can be and like the monotheistic Christian paradigm is. It's more comprehensive. It's more pluralistic. It's more powerful. And discovering how as a witch I have power and I can tap into that power and I can become one with the creative force of the universe. Without learning about that and practicing that and just kind of giving myself into the wave kind of idea, just letting myself fall back into the ocean of this magical universe. Without doing that, I don't think I could have survived that first year up there in Massachusetts. So, I know this is kind of a rambling video, but my point is, today's my last full day in Georgia. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to see my husband again. I'm hoping it's by the end of September or early October. But because of his love and support, and the love and support of my family and friends, but also because of the power I've discovered within myself as a witch, I know that this second year up in Massachusetts is going to be very different. Because I'm going to practice this radical self-love. I'm going to take care of myself better than I did last year. And my witchery and the things I've learned to do is going to allow me to do that. Just the other day, I made my very first batch of a salve. I don't know if it's a salve or a salve or an ointment, whatever you want to call it. I made it as a lip balm, but I also made it for my husband because his skin on his hand has contact dermatitis and it breaks out a lot, and it actually works. This stuff, this thing that I made with just herbs and oils and beeswax, it's more effective than any prescription medicine that we've been able to find for him. That is power. That is taking care of yourself. That is being independent and being an independent thinker, you know? That is radical self-love. So, the next time you guys hear from me, I'll be up in Massachusetts. I'll give you a mini tour of my tiny apartment that I pay way too much money for. And I'll keep in touch. As the semester gets in full swing, I won't be able to make as many videos as I've been making this summer, but I'm gonna make it a weekly thing, because actually being able to talk to you guys, even just the handful of people who have subscribed to me and the other people who might come across this video, being able to express myself and put it out there and own it, own my beliefs, own who I am, that is also radical self-love. So I have to thank you guys for watching and for your comments and for subscribing, because this YouTube channel is part of my journey too. So, yeah. Thank you for listening to my rambling. And remember, take care of yourself. Radical self-love. It's a powerful thing. Okay, I'll see you in Massachusetts. Bye.